Ken Hackman, the Birdman. Good morning, Ken. How are you, sir? It is a pleasure to have you. It's been a long time, and always enjoy you when you're filling in. But we are in the midst of the hummingbird thing, and anybody has some questions about hummingbirds, you can do that real quick here because I only got one segment with Ken. But where are we now as far as the season?
We are right at the peak of hummingbird migration. It really starts around the 4th of July weekend. Gets started, slowly starts building, and we are right smack dab in the heat of what's going on. Everybody should have their feeders out and loaded.
I've noticed over the last several years, people seem to be, especially in the neighborhoods around here, that they're doing it more and more than they did several years ago. Since we don't have a lot of time, the most often asked questions people have about hummingbirds and getting into that and making sure that they're taken care of on their trip south, but what are they? Well, I'll let you answer them.
Okay, well, number one, it's important to get the right mix. You need one part of water one part of sugar to 4 parts of water. There's no need to give more than that. And ironically enough, there's a lot of myth out there that you have to boil your water. That's not true. It just helps the sugar melt a little faster. Just warm water is fine. The bacteria and whatnot in the water are not going to cause trouble. In fact, the chlorine that we put in our tap water will actually keep some of that at bay. Might even last a little bit longer. I used to use distilled water all the time. The one thing that I tell people is please, please, please don't use any red food coloring. The book is still out on that, but we think that it may be causing reproductive failure.
And they sell those. They sell them in the stores like that, like Kool-Aid, and there's no telling how long that stuff has been sitting in the package anyway, so you don't need to do that.
I refuse to use those prepackaged nectars. The best thing for them is just sugar and water, and it's a whole lot cheaper than what you buy in the store. You don't need those preservatives. The birds certainly don't need those preservatives. I think a lot of the problems we as humans have now are due to preservatives. So don't want to get those little tiny things.
Is the Holly Springs deal still going on up there? Because I know it was for many years, but I haven't heard anything the last couple of years.
It is, yes.
And I've always wanted to go up there, but go ahead.
The big one is in Rockport, Texas. This past weekend, it's a phenomenal celebration. Happens every year. People should look out for that. I've been telling friends for years they should go, and one of my friends just went this last weekend, and they're just blown away. It's the biggest hummingbird festival in the country. And there's a tour of 32 homes as just a small part of the festival. And each of those homes may have as many as 1,000 hummingbirds in their yard at a time. It's like walking into a swarm of bees. It's just a phenomenal sight.
It's almost like the Christmas lights festivities, but they do it with hummingbirds then. That's
right.
Incredible.
That's right.
That's incredible.
And they can get several species, not just the ruby throat.
I was going to say, they probably have more species than anything else over there.
Right, a little further west. Now, we do get, and this is something that as we go forward, I would like people to remember, we do get, we've had as many as 11 species here in the wintertime. And I always encourage people to leave the feeders up, at least 1 or 2 feeders in the wintertime, because you never know if you'll get one of those absolutely gorgeous western species. You can look some of those up online. They are magnificent. And you can't get them if your feeder's not up, but you certainly can if they are up. And there's nothing that you can do to keep the poor little ruby throats here. People think if I leave my feeder up, they'll stay and freeze. That's not true. If they're healthy, they're going to leave. If they're not healthy, they need you in that feeder. So it's kind of important to leave feeders out all year.
Do we have documentation that we know how long they stay here when they come to the feeder? When they first arrive at the feeder, how long they stay before they resume their journey? Do we have any idea? Because
during this time of year, 1 day.
Yeah.
1 day. The bird you see today is gone tomorrow. And people say, but I see him in the same spot. Well, a good location for one hummingbird is a good location for any hummingbird, and they're going to sit there.
So do they travel daytime or nighttime?
The hummingbirds travel both. They prefer a crepuscular type of movement. They'll feed as they go. There's a lot of different activities there. A lot of it depends on the species. Most of our ruby throats fly in a rather crepuscular fashion.
It is amazing also that it's an incredible bird that they don't travel in flocks either, do they? They actually go individually?
No. Yes, they go individually, unlike most of our migratory birds who do prefer to travel in flocks. They're as much as we love them, as beautiful as they are, they're a rather nasty tempered bird. Anybody that's watched what I call Hummer Wars rather than Star Wars, anybody that's watched Hummer Wars at the feeders will understand that aspect of it. They're just not a gregarious species at all. They do put up with each other long enough to feed, and I've seen as many as 16, 20 hummingbirds on one feeder. If you have the right kind of feeder, dish feeder's the best, in my opinion. They'll put up with each other to get tanked up before they head south. They'll double their body weight.
Yeah. Oh, really? I often say we're very, very lucky that they're that small, because if they were the size of an eagle, we'd have a problem.
Yes, we would. We'd also go through an awful lot of sugar.
Yeah. Well, also probably some damage to the houses, too. The species that we get here, as you said before, every once in a while you'll see is it an albino, or is it one that's just got some off-colored wings, the genetic?
Primarily, when we see a hummingbird that's white, most of it leucistic, which means a partial albinism.
That's the word I was looking for, yeah.
Right. It's leukocyte, of course, a white blood cell, leuco meaning white. Leucocephalus, the bald head of the bald eagle. Leucisticism is a common occurrence, not as common as surviving in the wild, because you have to realize that a leucistic bird literally has a target on its back. It's an easy target for any predator to look for. It. Hummingbirds are able to survive that better than a lot of species because of their speed.
Amanda in Pike County said, what kind of feeder is best? Well, that's an open-ended question, isn't it?
Yes, I prefer, and most of the serious hummingbird enthusiasts that I know prefer a dish feeder that has the feeding ports in the top. The liquid is underneath, and you simply pour it in. There's several advantages to that. The bees and wasps can't get in. It's very easy to clean. There's a feeder made by Aspects, ASPECTS. I get mine at Wild Birds Unlimited. It's the only feeder that I will use for hummingbirds. You can pop the lid off and stick it in the dishwasher, and you're done. Depending on how many you have out, if you've got 10 feeders out, you buy 20, put 10 in the dishwasher, keep the other 10 out on the thing, and just switch them each day.
I got to ask you, because these things are marathon flyers. I think I saw one in Nome, Alaska, that was actually found someplace in Florida, and I thought, my God, how is that possible? But what's the farthest?
That's unusual if it was found in Florida. A lot of these birds don't fly down Florida.
I shouldn't have said that. In the Gulf Coast, not Florida. I'm sorry, the Gulf Coast.
Yes. We do find quite a few species from all over.
For people who don't know
in
this,
fact,
the
one year we had a
trajectory
white-eared hummingbird that.
For people who don't know, they go from all. Yes, we are all over the country, and they head down to the Gulf Coast, and from the Gulf Coast they go where from there?
Well, some of them stay, actually. We do have very mild winters, and that's what I was talking about with the wintering hummingbirds. We'll have buff-bellied, calliope. A number of them just stay on our coast because our coast is as mild in the wintertime as their mountain ranges that they live in during the summer. So a lot of them stay. Now, the ruby-throated hummingbirds go all the way across the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of them migrate down the Texas coast, but there are some that go directly across to the Yucatan.
Get out, enjoy it, because you'll fall in love with it. It's a lot of fun. Ken, always good to have you, sir. Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Always good to be here, Paul.